Hello everyone, we are going to do May's predictions. We're also going to look at the poll I put up on YouTube about spirit boxes. Last time I checked it was 42% believe in spirit boxes, 42 don't believe in spirit boxes, and 10% do not know. Okay, so since then I'm going to check where we are. We're going to talk about that, and I'll probably do that first so that I don't forget. Do you want a reading on the Pope, or is it just very clear that, we kind of predicted it? We narrowed it down to a day or two that he'd pass in my predictions, if you've not seen that. And I did a short on that as well. Virginia Giuffre, we did a reading on her prior. How many of you actually believe that she decided to... I've heard this new word, and at first it caught me off guard, and I thought the person was saying that they've unsubscribed, she's unsubscribed from their news channel, but what they meant is that from life. It was so funny, like it just took a second to click, because they said she decided to unsubscribe, and I was like, what? And I found it strange that a news channel was actually using that wording. But we know what this channel's like. But if you're a large audience, you don't really get targeted. But I also understand how a lot of the channels have got into the multi-thousands, like whether it's 20,000, 15,000, 10 plus thousand, and so on. And obviously more, but as they got bigger and bigger, they didn't really need it. They use like a traffic tech that helps their, I don't know what the person does really, but something like that. Obviously that service takes money. It's not manipulation, but I do guess that there are channels that have people that just put any comment or something that helps their video. Anyway, if you enjoy this, please do give it a like, a subscribe, a comment, even if you don't want to like it, if you don't want to subscribe to the channel. Just supporting the channel helps me go back to where I was, dedicating time and energy. I've not made anything from YouTube, but if we can grow the channel where it is giving a little bit back, for example, your payout has to be £60 or over for a first payout. I've not had that yet, so can you imagine like all this work? So it will just be good, because even if you get like little bonus payments, it means that where I can give time, I would like to give time. I do enjoy it and interact and read on more stuff, whether it's heavy but also the interim light-hearted, so that there are daily videos. And that requires your support, because we all need kind of not energy back as, only, but also something that balances, we need cost of living, right? So and it's a very hard time for everyone. Now May is going to be a much you can say a cool down month. Remember I said about between the 25th, 27th, things are going to be a bit chaotic, and I think there's been, and give it a day or so after the 27th, I think there's been blackouts, which I'll get to because I predicted that. I think there's been a couple of earthquakes. There's some weather disasters that's happened. So Virginia Giuffre, I'd like to see what you all think. Now let's go to the spirit box. Now I might post this separately. The reason I put this poll up is because I'm someone who's very open to believe in limitless possibilities. I've had on my channelings in the past, on the high profile YouTube social media cases, can you do a spirit box as well? So a while back, I always thought that there's significant. So when I was a bit younger, I was like, okay, this is interesting, because I thought that they were professionals, as in they had a talent or a skill to really understand what was coming through. So what we know as spirit boxes is that they tap into radio stations at a high frequency, and it invites spirits to send messages in. And then there's a slowing down of that because it's all jumbled, isn't it? And then I didn't really pay much attention to them because I felt like this is... So the human interpretation area is 100% a free shot. So it can hit, it cannot hit. What I'm trying to say is that within me, in the recent years, I've rejected the idea of the accuracy of this. I believe there is a way for us, obviously there's channelers, that could tap into some kind of tech that does bring in energy, whether it's via sound or via camera or via electricity, etc., via the spirit world. So when they take the spirit boxes to like a haunted area, they're not even inviting the spirits, and the spirit makes themselves known. But then there's people that live in houses that don't necessarily invite spirits, and the spirit that lives there or decides to visit makes themselves known. It's just an equipment that a spirit can manipulate the energy to make itself known, and then human beings interpret what's coming through as they hear it. Now, if they're a channeler or something, they could get it right. They could also know the backstory of the situation, and so keywords, they can hear it, what would link to the story, whether it's their ego, their conscious, or even their intuitive side. But most of the time it's very difficult when you know something that your conscious doesn't come through. And you would have seen me in readings and channeling, I'm like, I'm not sure if this is my, like, I try not to know, and if I've heard a bit of the story, I'm like, I'm not sure if this is a bit my ego or unconscious. I need to sit quietly to meditate on it. It's scary when you don't have a backstory, because obviously you're human at the end of the day, and you can interpret things a bit wrong, and you're putting yourself much further out there. But if you have a bit of a backstory, it can stop your limits of actually delivering what you see fully. Okay, so in my opinion, I don't think they have the spirit box thing fully right. Now, if we think of it, I don't think they have the tech or the frequency fully right. There's something there that's lacking, that just needs fine-tuning. And then the human interpretation is hit or miss. It's just as good as you watching the news and then coming forward with what you understood. If they took out, for example, words, like let's say they say a sentence of 10 words, they take out 3 words and you make up the sentence. It's just as good as you whether you're a normal human being, intuitive, you do have intuition and empathy, and you do have those skills, but there's obviously some people that have more connection. So the average human being, let's say, that's my view on it. And that's why I decided to see what you all think. Because although I'm a realist, when it gets to the point and I totally reject something, like in the last couple of years, whether I've, especially in the last year, whether I've done a case or not done a case, and it happens to bring up a spirit box, I totally reject being able to watch it. Like, I actually feel like it's, I don't want to say the word BS because it's disrespectful, just in case a spirit does try to come through, manipulate that energy to get their message in. Can they manipulate tech, like to switch off the camera and stuff? Yes. And that's why I say they will use things where they can manipulate the energy to deliver something to us or to make their presence known. And spirit boxes help them do that. But for the message, for the story, beyond an energy or a sound, for a proper channeling of details and stuff, we don't have that fine-tuned. If you think of it, we're put in a box and we're saying, okay, spirits, I'm connecting to heaven. I want X person to come through, and you're connecting to all these spirits. And then suddenly that person comes through. So there's no right or wrong answer to this. Whatever you believe in at the moment is right for you. It might change, it might not change. That's my thoughts on it, and I wanted to share that with you. And I'll be interested to see what you think of it. So there is a part of it where you can essentially say it aids that connection. So yes, you can believe in it, but fully to what extent? And if you believe fully in the human interpretation of it, that I don't. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I might post this separately, just so that people can see the poll. I might do another poll as well, because I think it's good to interact. I didn't do them often because not many people see them. Some people do pay attention, which is great, because then we can learn through this way, and I can see if anyone agrees with me, disagrees with me. Obviously on this channel everyone's thoughts are welcome. All that we do is respect everyone's opinion, as if we have to sit at the same table, and we're open to everyone's opinion and dimension of where we're at, because I'm going to talk about timelines and our consciousness in this video as well. So I'd like to also say that the Spanish, the Spain, Portugal blackouts, I predicted some in Europe, didn't I? Now, I don't know what they're saying is the reason, but I do think that in South America, somewhere along let's say Colombia, Brazil, I don't feel Brazil is the right one, South American areas, right? Puerto Rico have or will have a blackout as well, and it has to be within the same proximity. I don't believe it's solar flares. I don't believe it's the Schumann resonance, which I don't know if they're stating that. I don't know if they're stating overheating. I don't know what's being stated. If you know, I'd love for you to comment. Is there a backstory of institutional hiding something? I think there's something there. And that's why I say a South American state, which probably speaks Spanish, might have had a blackout, or something along those lines, all right? I don't know if France has had a blackout yet, and the UK, but where they can, they might not. They might try not to make it news worldwide, regionally, and even if they can stop it being locally. Okay, but you're going to know, obviously, if you live in that state, city, town, county, right? This is global predictions, and I'm doing it themes for everyone at the door. So had to answer that. And I think I should take a breath, right? I'm like, I've got so much to cover. The best thing to do is, I need to do my nails. Please don't look. Now everyone will look. Get a gym shaker, and then have your amethyst straw. Don't ask why I've got my gym shaker. I don't put protein in that. I carry the water or the BCAAs. So, yeah, Zain in Portugal, and I don't think we're going to hear much about it. I've mentioned about protests in Europe, but also in England, where it could just go a bit out of control, but protests coming up in general. I think there might have been a recent one. I might have read it last night. I'm not really sure. A bicycle or something. I'm not sure. And then there's been a few American volcanoes. American volcano about to erupt after 66 earthquakes recorded in a week. I did say about the tremors and the rumbles, and I said about the different states. Now, something else I did say was about in Ohio, there's going to be a crime case coming up, and some of you might have been like, okay, well, but what I meant is something very serious. And I could see, I think I'm mixing stuff, and that's why I just said that. I'm going to try and link it, but like 4 days ago, it popped up on my screen, and basically I think there is going to be a crime case brought to court for a very heinous man, and this is what I believe I was seeing, because it's not just crime, like big crime, right? Either someone very heinous, and I'm the type of person where I feel sorry for someone that I can see their souls departed and they are just empty, maybe done DRUGs, and someone who is really turned evil and sadistic, and this person I think is that person. So I'll be interested to see if I can watch that case, because a recent case that was up was, if anyone watched it, please let me know. Jose Morales, I think it is. I can't remember what state it was in. What he did to his girlfriend, and they don't know where the baby is. The baby Vanessa, his girlfriend is Christina. It's a recent one. But basically he smashed her skull like 8 times. Her brain fell out her head in the bath. And his defense is he's high on PCP. And thank gosh they found him guilty, but there's no sign of where the baby is. I actually didn't like that judge. She was very limiting on the state's witnesses. But while I was trying to watch that, I was getting really heavy energy. I was feeling sick, but I really wanted to watch it. So I'd take breaks and then go back and watch it. And I shouldn't have watched it because it just drains my energy. So I don't know what this is going to be like for this one. I'm trying to I'll link it in the description box. His name is it Darrell Jones or Darnell Jones? And apparently it was committed in March, this crime. And just 4 days ago it comes up. So I believe this is the Ohio crime that I saw. Very dangerous man. So I think he should have been on their radar before. But where I say I might be mixing is because I was also seeing the Ohio crime, but I was also seeing possibly a teenager or a shooting, but then also something getting into a mass frenzy of out of control people, so maybe a serial K. Now, this teenager might have been someone who is spying on DT as well. We need to be careful of that. But that is something, I don't know if it has come through anything of those stories. Like, it seems like there's a rush of people after a person, or this person's a bit out of control. Not the Ohio, I believe that is the one I saw. And that's why I'm going to be interested to see what I see more of too. But I didn't know how to say how heinous this person is. I just think there's going to be, if it's one person, which it is there's going to be a lot of stuff that he's done basically that equivalates to a lot. So that's something else. There's quite a few validations, not to ring my own trumpet, but you know, when the channels are big, it's a lot easier to actually have someone to clip out stuff, which a lot of people do. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to look at my notes for May. I do want to say that I've mentioned Iceland before. I mentioned it in my last reading, and I also said, where I said Iceland twice, I meant Antarctica. I've been mentioning Antarctica for at least 2 years since I was doing the global predictions on YouTube. Antarctica is rich in resources, and you might think, well, we know that. No, you don't know. We don't know enough. There's a lot more. And I do think that there's going to be beneficial and malefic energy that tries to enter into Antarctica. And I've said this before, and I won't be surprised. I don't know who owns Antarctica, which is really bad for me to be saying this. But if there's going to be a fight on it, it's rich in resources. It has a history that I believe we've not uncovered. And I do believe there's scientists there that we're not aware of that are working on things. And there could be healing mechanisms. I do feel like the ice that turns into water there has a very high vibration and energy. And I wonder if they can utilize it as a healing. I'm not getting a yes when I say that, a healing by spirit, but it's like an elevation. There's something when you ingest it, something changes on your level or your vibration. There's something there that I need to sit and think. And so I'm mentioning it again because I do think that we're going to be hearing something on Antarctica. And I'm going to get to Iceland, but Antarctica is really one where, you know, I think we're going to find species we never knew, history we never knew, a journey way back that could hold history and records. But there's a wealth of resources and things that are not even found out. Like when we hear scientists have discovered this, it's the tip of the iceberg, really. Be interesting to see how Antarctica through the last, since 2017 and 2019, so 2017, 2019, 2023, and this year, those 4 years I'm getting potent to looking at either how many people visited, but the energy, the climate, the Schumann resonance, and the solar flares, and sort of the temperature and the gorge of that. Something about that, which is interesting. If you're into your geography and stuff, please let us know. But there's a wealth of treasure there, and I don't mean like gold. I mean treasure that, do you know when you find it, you're like, this has got to be treasure. But then anyone that listens to you is like, I can't see what you're talking about. But it turns out to be really Yes. Okay. So I do think this month is a bit of a cool down, so maybe it's a good time to take a little breather if you can. But oh, I've got quite a lot of predictions. Let's see what we can get through, okay? So this is May, but there's also a lot that will be happening in May that I think is going to transcend in the next 2 years and up to 8 years themes, okay? So that's why I don't really like to call them the monthly, because people think by the time it gets to June it's out of date, but it's not. A lot comes through for further. So it's a bit cooler, a calmer month, okay? The stock turbulence that maybe those of you in stock might have witnessed, and I'm not a financial advisor, I don't know, maybe a bit more stable in terms of its turbulent energy that could have been maybe a bit peaky and erratic. I do think that we're going to see some form of leak on communication. And this could be around frameworks of education. It could be around change. I do think, I've said this before, there is going to be a revamping of the education framework. At the beginning, it's going to be like, side eye. But it should be for the improvement. Like, I feel like so far the energy around it is actually to improve. And this is probably going to be sometime this year, early into next year, we're going to see the signs. We've mentioned about space and travel advancements, so check my previous predictions, and I still see that coming forward. More sort of self-driving cars as well. I've mentioned about courier deliveries being very different as well. We're going to see a lot more robots, but robots are not going to overtake humans. And we just need to be not fearful of that, but also we need to make sure that the malefic energy doesn't get hold of them to try and do that sort of stuff and create fear if they can't even do that sort of stuff of replacing humans. There's still going to be a lot of exposure. We've not seen it all. It's still going to be coming out, and it's going to be worldwide. Now, individually and collectively, you might see that you see in your life from May onwards this year into next year, themes that might have been in your life around 2013 and 2014. And there could be reoccurring themes that might come up for you in those years. So I'll be interested to see if that comes up. Previously, I've mentioned about Hollywood. I've mentioned about the music industry. I've mentioned about sound systems changing, and that is going to change, and I go into a bit more detail on how I think it's going to change in a previous prediction, so we're just bringing that up but not repeating. Sound system, sound frequency. I've mentioned sound frequency a year and a half ago, where there's a benefit side and there's a malefic side if they want to increase it so far that it controls us. So sound frequency, don't be frightened. So what we're doing today is just seeing how the old world is shedding so that a new one can be formed. And you need to think of this as what an exciting time to be alive, because you've witnessed the old world, but you're seeing the new world before it gets so far forward that the current state is so unrecognizable that you would not be able to comprehend how this existed. I hope that makes sense. The worry around the trade war, it will be okay. Some people are very, very worried. Obviously, there is damage, but it will be okay. Real estate, I'd look at your mortgages, I'd look at real estate. There could be times throughout this month where the price goes down and it's more affordable. Okay, interest rates worldwide, have a look at that. There could be dates where this month you could look for deals. Oil leaks in the ocean, oil spills, explosion of oil and gas. Avoid travel in the ocean. I've mentioned this, try and avoid that. So although May might be a good time to take a vacation because it's a bit cooler energy, try and avoid the cruise ships and stuff like that. I wonder if we're going to hear about pirates, or a pirate on a ship, or something around pirates coming up. We haven't heard of that for a while, actually. I did see like a Navy ship attack or something with a Navy ship. So that could be coming up in May or onwards. Again, May until early next year, or sometime next year. I do think there's going to be more exposure around cults and ways that they have been mind controlling. This could be via even airwaves. So it doesn't necessarily mean doesn't have to mean just a cult that you hear suddenly has so many people following them, or gurus. It could be like what they're doing and embedding on social media, on any airwaves, on the internet, what we're watching. And it can be dangerous if you're feeling vulnerable in your life, things are not going the right way, or you're weak-minded, because that's when you don't feel strong and stable in life and you can buy into these things. So we just need to be careful. It's okay to follow certain things, but don't follow everyone just because you think everyone's going in the right direction. Empower yourself to what feels right, but again, not from an ego, stubborn standpoint of view. Canada is probably a tight race. I don't know if you're going to see this before the end of it. I think the way Canada sits, I've mentioned Canada in previous predictions, and you know what I think, but the way Canada sits as a country, I think they're going to struggle on oil and gas resources, getting money from GDP, but they'll get money from oil and gas resources, but their financial kind of stability is a bit stagnant. So it does need a bit of a boost. And I think Pierre could have been, or could be, interesting I say could have been, maybe because of, I don't know what's happening, but I say could have been because I said if there is I do feel he's celebrating a victory, but if he does get in, it's because he'll probably be taken out. I think people are seeing that he could be the more like the Canadian Trump than Pierre, but Canada as a country, as an energy, I think would benefit as it is today. Next year could be different by having Pierre rather than Carney, but he would have needed, if he doesn't get in, allied support to really win. Okay, and if he gets in, he's found some allied support. I do think that we are going to be hearing again a bit more about the UFOs, the what do you call it? The unidentified. Oh, that is. But there's another word, isn't there? Not just ETs. There's another one. Because they were preparing with messaging, and I think they're still preparing it, just to try and ease fear. And the whole point of this is because, let's be honest, if there is something like that existing, why are they holding back, not landing? And it's because our vibration, and not to take us from fear, but still, we need to be ready but careful. so that there's a less panic, fear reaction for anyone that might feel that contact. Obviously, you will still feel fear and anxious. I do think that there's something about their vibration, and they can also understand our vibration of readiness and our vibration of fear. But I wonder if, like, there's a vibrating energy around them. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it would be interesting if someone does come into contact, how they feel there and probably after, when they've been able to absorb it. But I do think readiness of messaging is going to start to come through again. Like I mentioned, it is an interesting time to be alive. I don't know if anyone feels like, do you know how they say, I'm talking about real life? Does anyone feel like you're in a bit of a void of, is this real life or is this a vortex or something? It's a very interesting timeline, and I think there might be some energies around that. In May, you could pay attention to your dreams, okay? This could also be where you're sat and then suddenly you feel like you've transcended in a daydream, and there's signs and you just feel interconnected, or something's drifted you. And this is about synchronicities of the multidimensional timelines and levels and dimensions we have all around us, and that we're all at different levels. But we do have a free will, a freedom of choice, despite all the control that is trying to be there. Look at the elements in your life that you do have a freedom on. You have a freedom to go out your door to buy a coffee if you've got the money for a coffee, to go wherever you want to go. You have a freedom in your home. So there is a freedom of choice. There is a freedom to a certain extent of speech as well. So we need to look at those small things as well, and the gratitude side of stuff, because when we see all these things happening, we can get caught up in it. It can also make us feel that we're controlled, as opposed to actually being free beings that have a choice. Now, sometimes the choices we have to make are, there's a no-win. There's a no-win to the choice that we feel we're put in between a rock and a hard, is it a rock and a hard, not a rock and a hard place. What's the saying? Where you're in between two things that, this is hard, what do I do? But you know, there is a choice. Sometimes the choice is also a good choice, but it's a difficult choice. So we have to look at those things. And there is a timeline of choices here, timeline of consciousness, and we'll all be different. And so what do we know about time? I can tell you, we know that time is not linear. We might make a decision to go this way, and we might end up arriving at our destiny, which is here. Whether you took that way or this way, you arrive, okay? But your journey of experience will be different. Your journey of consciousness will be different, and we're all at different levels. You could be on a 3D today, but tomorrow you're at a 5D, and maybe majority of your life you're trying to be at that 5D, but there will be days where you come down to a 3D. Last year I said that we will soon hear of people slowly talking about 6D, and I do think that will be coming up again. It's like a landscape, and even we can slip into the future, and we can slip into the past and come back to the present. And maybe some of you will relate to this, but wherever you are in your timeline, in your journey, it's the journey for you. It's the journey that we're supposed to be able to handle. Dear God. And it's the journey for us to see and learn. But the 3D and 5D split, I think there's more than that dimension at the moment. It's very evident, and you can probably tell it from talking to someone, you know. And there are a lot of challenges around the world, around the country, the environments we're in. But one thing to remember that will help you try to get out of any fear, erratic 3D energy is to look for the kindness and love, where you can simply elevate a little bit in the timeline or change your timeline totally. Okay, so that one we've done. Australia, the region, the south, could be at risk of some tremblings, some water, anything water which comes from earth tremblings. But I see a region that's not risky to human life. And this is between May and down to, I'd say, July, August. Okay, well, Japan is very sensitive up until July. Flooding in South China and Southeast China, which could disturb Taiwan. Again, it could be rumbles of the earth. Again, up to July, August. Central Europe, Germany, Austria, Romania, there could be water. And again, I'm going to mention this about a waterborne disease coming out. So we need to be careful there. We could hear of some heinous crimes in Southwest Asia or the Western world coming up. Now, we don't usually hear a lot about that, so whether it's something that's going to be tried to be masked, but there's an energy there that I think could bring up something around that. I think we need to protect the forests as much as we can, because they are our shock absorbers, they are our protectors, and I don't believe we're playing with nature. Like, there's a lot of cities that have been formed by stripping away nature, building into the sea, and you can probably think of one Middle East country that I actually like, and so too much playing with the earth can be risky. I think there's a need to regulate in industrial actions like mining, so safety triggers around that, because I think there could be a risk of going too far, and I don't think we've got the regulatory and safety measurements that need to be in there, and the triggers, and also more increased warning systems, early warning systems of oceanic measurements and triggers. Now, the problem with that is when humans decide to, I can see a big wave. What could we do to manipulate, to test this, to la la la, yeah? I think over this next year and a half, we are likely to see possibly some more compassionate leaders stepping forward. This could mean we have a choice to vote for them. It could also mean that they step in. But what we need to do here is we need to be careful not to confuse these leaders with cult kind leader gurus. So we need to be careful with that. Now, it doesn't mean they have to come dressed in like guru clothes and stuff. It could be your leaders, your political leaders that are actually cult leaders. So we have to be careful of that. I do think that something within this next year, a year and a half, 2 years maximum, New Zealand, Indonesia, Iceland, and the US, there's going to be some change to them, change to their identity, something around the country's identity is going to change. I do think in May we're going to hear about Trump and a tech company. Maybe they're at lockerheads or action in the tech that he takes, or something about tech coming up, and I think it involves Duck in some kind of way. What's interesting is, I think although May could be a bit challenging for Duck, I think next year, May 2026, the energy that I feel for him there is very challenging, and I wonder if it could be chest, heart related. But again, not that it's a passing. So we'll get to that stage. But as much as people may say this month is challenging for him, I think we need to be careful of the as we move out of the end of April into the first week of May. I think in my last predictions I mentioned we need to be careful around in May, the dates around the 11th, 12th, 13th, those kind of dates, and I get 12th in particularly as well. But again, I'd look at like from the 10th to the 13th, 14th, those dates, but 12 to 14 especially. I might have just confused you, but I'm giving buffer days on each side of the equation. There could be tech system blackouts. Your phone suddenly doesn't work in the slightest, apps, flights, something like that around the 25th, 27th of May. Maybe cybersecurity, maybe an educational leak, maybe a massive explosive leak on social media. There's something around that. And go back to my beginning of my reading, I did mention about leaks as well. I do think that there is also, it could be also hacking. I do think that there's also news on higher education, grants, tech legislation coming in, that we might hear ripples in May. I do think it probably be May time that this is going to come in, and it could be anywhere in the world. I do feel it for the US, but it's a theme that could be anywhere. The UK, I think there's going to be a bit more upheaval on benefits, people that are struggling, and where our money is going. I've mentioned about summer dates where there's going to be extreme heat. There could be power outages. We need to watch for that as well. And also, I do see also in May time, it could go on a bit more, but it's not going to be a year's time. I think it's the energy of May that I was feeling. Some royal attack. It could be the UK, it could be any royalty that gets hacked. Something goes on there that I don't want to say hopefully we'll hear of. Hopefully it doesn't happen, although I'd like a right prediction. But if it happens, that we hear of it. So something to be careful there about. I think I've covered everything in terms of the predictions, and yeah, and so if you're Canadian, I'd love to hear from you. Just quickly on some stuff that I might not have mentioned, I'm not sure. I think I have mentioned train transports, holograms of communications, airspace, Cosmo. Yeah, I mentioned this all in the previous prediction. Parenting, education changes, microchips. So I've mentioned that all before, and I now have mentioned about the May themes and going on. I'd say please be careful of any travel. If you're thinking to take a cruise, maybe wait it out a little bit. But again, I understand that we can't wait on something we've already booked, right? So it doesn't always mean these things happen. Have faith and enjoy your journeys. It's just if you're going to book something, maybe just avoid the ocean, that kind of ship travel. So if you're thinking, yeah, I'm going to book my first cruise, blah, 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 but you've got an option to do it later on, it might just be best. So everyone, I hope I've covered everything I wanted to cover. Usually I stop and then I'm like, oh God, I forgot. And I hope you are all well. Let me know in the comments how you're doing. Summer's coming up, how you're feeling. May 1st is coming up. May Day, they call it something else, don't they? What is it? Beltane? that should be a good energy, right? That should be a good energy. Remember, you can check the past predictions because they're still very valid. And even if this says May, it'll be May for the next 2 years as well, where we've said May, we've said 2 years up to 8 years as well. And let me know how you're doing, what's going on in your country, your part of the world. And stay blessed, everyone. Much love.